Okay, so hello again, everybody. So as Jamie said, we're going to be doing the writing task 2, academic writing task 2 today, advantage and disadvantage essays, which is quite a popular type of question. So the outline of the webinar is understanding the question, planning your answer, and how to develop your ideas. And as Jamie said, there'll be a Q&A at the end. So please feel free to leave your questions in the chat as we go along. We'll try and address as many as possible at the end. All right, so let's get started. So the aims of the webinar. So by the end of this webinar, you will be able to understand advantage and disadvantage questions, plan your essay using a simple structure, use linking expressions to develop your argument, and use key vocabulary to describe benefits and drawbacks.
Hi there, guys. It seems that Mary has frozen, so she's perhaps having an internet connection issue. So while we're waiting for her to come back, maybe we can take a look at this question together, okay? So let me just check firstly, can you all hear me? I know that Mary's frozen, but yeah, Radislava, Neo, you can hear me? Excellent. And that's good. I think that's Mary coming back in just now, so we should be with her in a moment. Let me see if I can share my own presentation with you so that you can follow this. So this is a type of advantage disadvantage question. There are 3 main types of advantage disadvantage question. And you can use a slightly different approach to answer each type of question, just a small difference in structure. Can anyone tell me what the 3 different types of advantage disadvantage question are? Any ideas on that? What are the 3 main types of advantage disadvantage question? And I'm just bringing up my slides at the moment, which I can share with you. So 1 second. Let's see. Pros and cons. Yep. To what extent? Very good. Yeah. Opinion as well. These are all good suggestions. Just 1 second, guys, and I will share my screen with you, so you should be able to see the presentation now. Okay, how about...
Sorry, Jamie, I didn't know what happened then.
Hello, Mary.
I don't know what, sorry.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I just went completely dead. I don't know why. I'm really
it's
sorry.
Okay. Well, no worries. I was just about to share my screen with everyone, so
okay.
It's fine. No worries. Do you have your presentation up ready to share?
Yes, just a minute.
Cool.
I was just talking to myself. I was like, nobody's answering.
Sure. Maybe we can rewind that bit. Let's see, guys. So yes, we are back. We're sharing the screen, and I've just asked our students, what are the 3 main types of advantage disadvantage questions? So
okay.
This might be something we're going to look at in a bit, but Vu, I can see you're saying do the benefits outweigh the drawbacks? This is one type for sure. We've also got discuss the advantages and disadvantages. This is a second type of question. The third type, very similar, discuss the advantage and disadvantage and give your opinion. So those are the 3 types. in this session, we're going to focus on, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, but we're also going to look at a structure you could use for the other two types as well. So that is the plan for the session, okay? We'll look at this in a bit more detail. So sorry, Mary, if I've run ahead a little bit
No,
of where you are going, but if it's all right, I can, and you're good to go, we can jump back in. So
sure. Am I okay to start at this point?
Yeah, I think that's fine. We can actually look at the question in a bit more detail now, I think. So
okay,
cool. All right, great.
All right, thanks, Jamie.
Cheers.
Okay, so sorry about that to everybody. I was talking to myself for a few minutes. So going back to the question, as I said before, I'm not sure anybody heard, but you need to read the question, identify each part, and then underline the keywords. And obviously this is the same process for every question in IELTS. So first of all, if you could tell me what you think the keywords are in this question. So can anyone give me the keywords? Population, that's right. Population, yeah. Large number of young adults. Okay, so that's a key phrase. Yeah, older people, that's right. Yeah, and then in the actual question, so advantages, outweigh, that's right. And disadvantages. Okay, so these are the keywords. As Jamie mentioned before, there are alternative question types. This is probably the most challenging. So the other question types are discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the situation. So that's quite straightforward. You're just discussing, as it says, talking about each one in turn. And the other one is doing the same thing, but you're also giving your opinion. Okay, so this one that we're going to be looking at today is a little bit different. So for this one, you need to decide on your overall response. So you're answering this question. Do the advantages of this situation outweigh the disadvantages? In other words, are there more advantages than disadvantages? So to do this, you just need to break it down. Okay, so you need to think about, first of all, the advantages and then the disadvantages, and try and list some. Okay, so what would you say are the advantages? More labour force, Sky? Yes, greater labour force. Any others? More labour, more workers, that's right. Yeah, more innovative people, Henry, that could be that. Innovation, increased production. Okay, so they're all the same kind of answers, so let's have a look. So it creates a bigger market for goods and services. That's one advantage. The other one that we thought of was young people are able to support elderly people. Okay, so there are two advantages. Can you think of any disadvantages? Less experience, Colleen, that's right. Inexperience, could be less patient people, fewer patient people. Higher fertility, that's a nice answer, Ghazi. Elderly or abandoned, that could be one. Yeah, so strain on public services. Okay, so they need more. They need more public services, basically, so that costs more money. And then the one that some of you mentioned, so there's a lack of jobs for young people, so not enough jobs. Right, so then going back to the question, so you need to think about whether there are more advantages than disadvantages, or whether the advantages are maybe a bit stronger. Okay, so we decided, yeah, so there are more advantages than disadvantages. So you need to just go with one side, basically. Okay, so now looking at the structure, so you will need to use a slightly different structure for discuss and outweigh questions. Let's take a look. Okay, so for the normal discuss question, you have the introduction. So what's the first part of the introduction? That's right, yes. So most of you know this. So paraphrase the question. And the second part, thesis statement, Sky. It's like the thesis statement, but you're not really giving your opinion, so it's an outline statement. So you're saying what will be discussed. And then body A, the first part, topic sentence, that's right. And then you would talk about the first advantage. So what would you do there? Explain, some of you are saying that's right. So explain and give examples. Yeah, most of you've got that. So explain and give one example. And then the second advantage is the same format. Okay, so that would be body A. Body B, what's the first thing? Topic sentence, yeah. So it's always a topic sentence to start each paragraph. And then the first disadvantage, explain and give example. Second disadvantage, explain and give an example. So it's exactly the same structure, except the first part you're talking about advantages, the second you're talking about disadvantages. And then the conclusion. So the first part of the conclusion, that's right, summarize main ideas and give opinion. That's right, give opinion if asked. So sometimes it might say give your opinion, and that's where you would give it. Okay, so that is the normal discuss question. So now coming back to the question we're looking at today, do the advantages of this situation outweigh the disadvantages? So just to remind you, the advantages and disadvantages. So advantages creates a bigger market for goods and services, and young people are able to support elderly people. That's the one we decided to focus on. The disadvantages, so we're just looking at one disadvantage, so the strain on public services. So the key points about this essay is that we need to show there are more advantages than disadvantages. Okay, it could be the other way around, but one has to be greater than the other. We can therefore write 3 body paragraphs. Paragraph A is one disadvantage, B is one advantage, and C is the other advantage. Okay, and usually in academic writing, we present the opposing view first. Okay, so in this case, we've got one disadvantage, so we would discuss that first, and then we'd talk about the advantages. And as I said before, it could be, if possibly there might be more disadvantages. So in that case, you would start with an advantage and then the disadvantages. Right, so now the structure for this type of essay. Introduction. Okay, the introduction is similar. Well, the first part is similar to the other type. So what comes first? Paraphrase, Ozma, that's right. So paraphrase the question. And then the second part, outline. Slightly different, actually. In this case, we would use a thesis statement, which is similar, but you're giving an opinion here. So in that sense, it's slightly different. And then body A, you would have the topic sentence, which introduces the first disadvantage. And what's the second part of that? Example, that's right. So yeah, most of you are getting that. So explain and give an example, that's right. And then body B. Topic sentence, yes, and first advantage. So, introduce advantage 1, and then explain and give an example. Body C. Yeah, the same. Topic sentence, so you introduce advantage 2, explain and give an example. And then the conclusion. yeah, summarize, Mohammed, that's right. So you summarize the main ideas and then you restate your opinion. Okay, so you're just saying that again, but in a different way. So that's the structure for this type of question. Okay, so now looking at the introduction. So I'll just read it once more. At the present time, the population of some countries includes a relatively large number of young adults compared with the number of older people. Do the advantages of this situation outweigh the disadvantages? So we've got 4 different ways of paraphrasing this lead in here. Synonyms, word form, word order, and voice. Okay, so the first, to start this off, the first phrase includes a word that you need a synonym for. So you need a synonym for countries. What could you say? Yeah, that's right, nations, good. So many nations around the world. And then we've got adults underlined, young people, that's right. Represent a large, so similar to number. Percentage, it could be. Somebody said it, I think, wait a minute. Large amount, proportion, that's right, some of you are saying it. So large proportion of the population. Okay, another word for compared with. In comparison, yeah, I mean, it could be in comparison with, but you would need with, not to. So yeah, Mohammed, that's right, relative to, good. Another word for older people. Elderly people, that's right. Aged people, it could be that as well. Or senior people would make sense too. Okay. And then we've got a nice linking phrase here, which just introduces the thesis statement. So this essay will argue that the benefits of okay, another synonym for young here. Youthful, yeah, that's right, yeah, youthful population. Something, the drawbacks. Okay, so the drawbacks is another word for disadvantages. Yeah, I mean, outweigh, it has the meaning of outweigh, but we just need a different word there. So I'll give you it because I don't think anyone's getting it. Offset. Offset the drawbacks. And then really lovely phrase at the end. It's kind of higher level lexis. This will get you a good band in the lexical resource section. Offset the drawbacks. I'll be very impressed if anyone gets this word. It's quite a difficult one. Okay, I'm going to give you it. So entailed by this state of affairs. Okay, so that's a really lovely phrase that you can learn. And then a reason. So as a country with a greater number of young people is better able to something, its economy. So improve, support, boost. Yeah, they all work there actually. So we've just chosen grow its economy and care for its elderly. Population, it could be another word. Citizens, that's right, good. Because we've already got population, so just try not to repeat the words. Okay, so that's introduction there. Okay, so now looking at the first paragraph, the disadvantages. Right, so you start with a topic sentence. So one commonly something disadvantage. Which word could make sense here? One commonly known. Yeah, known is good. Any others? Okay, so we've chosen cited. Cited. So that just means that something that a lot of people say. So one commonly cited disadvantage of a young population is that, so here is the disadvantage, it places greater strain on public services. And then an explanation. Okay, so it's nice to use a linking phrase like this to go into the explanation. So this is because larger numbers of young people require more what to be built? Similar to resources, it's kind of a word that covers everything, really, everything that young people might need. Facilities, aid, that's right. So it require more facilities to be built to accommodate them. And then an example. Okay, so again, a linking phrase. So for example, the government may need to something more in the school system. Yeah, invest, that's right, Tane. Invest more in the school system, which requires additional public, something to do with money, like taxes, funding or spending, yeah. Normally we'd say public spending. Okay, so just notice the linking expressions there. So one commonly cited disadvantage of is that this is because, for example, and which. Okay, so if you include a lot of linking expressions, what does that create within your answer? Beginning with C. Cohesion, Mohammed, thank you. Yeah, so that creates cohesion, and then also you need to use some useful vocabulary. So this nice phrase here, places a greater strain on public services, the school system, additional public spending. So these are all collocations. And then the verb forms used. So it's very simple, just the present simple for factual situations. Okay, so now looking at the first advantage. Okay, so again, starting with a topic sentence. So we start with a kind of concession phrase, so despite this. So this really acknowledges the disadvantage, but then you're also sort of connecting it with the advantage, coming back to the advantages. So despite this, there are a number of significant
Hi there, everyone. Nice to see you again. Can you hear me okay? I think Mary might have cut out again. Yep. Yeah. Thanks for that, Simran. So that's okay. While we're waiting for her to come back, we can continue. Guys, feel free, by the way, to add any questions you have to the Q&A. I've been helping to answer some of your questions, and there's been some great questions here. So while we're waiting for Mary to come back, you can take this opportunity to add in any questions you have about this essay type. Okay. Yeah, brain freeze apocalypse, Stephen, very good. Nice expression, and nice to see you again. Great. Let's see. Good question from Anonymous. Is the introduction a little bit too long? Yeah, that's a good point, Anonymous. It is quite a long introduction, but I think because we're rephrasing the question and the question itself is quite long, it's okay to make it very clear what you're going to describe. You're it's a very clear thesis statement. I will argue that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. You're directly answering the question. This is a good way to introduce your essay, even if you need to spend a few more words to do it, okay? Let's see, we've got a question from Roshan. Can we share the link to this video? Absolutely, Roshan. The video will be up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. I've just put the link in the chat there, so you'll be able to catch this on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Let's see. We have a good question here from Kalai. What is an outline statement? That's a very good question, Kalai. Basically, we've looked today at a thesis statement. The thesis statement makes your opinion very clear at the beginning of the essay in the introduction. The thesis statement says, this essay will argue that, or it says, you know, I strongly believe that. It gives a clear opinion at the start of the essay. The outline statement is similar, it's in the introduction, but it just tells the reader what you will discuss. So it tells the reader, in this essay, I will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of having a younger population. Okay, so you're not giving your opinion at the beginning, you're simply giving your, telling the reader the topic of the essay. Let me see, guys, I'm just trying to find the correct place in my slides. But while we're doing that, I'll look at a couple more of your questions. So let's see. Okay. Priya, you're asking, is it important to add examples in the essay? Yes, it's very, very important. In the question, it usually says, support your ideas with relevant examples. So you should be ready to give specific examples to support your main points. There was a very good question earlier about, you know, what to do if I don't know anything about the topic, if I don't know those specific details, I can't give, you know, this kind of example. And Sinsu, that's a very good point. You can just make a fake study. Yeah, you can invent examples. And Vishaka, exactly the same. You can say, you know, according to recent research, a youthful population helps the GDP of developing countries, okay? You can use expressions like according to recent research or a recent study has shown. You don't need to be specific, okay? You don't need to say according to the New York Times or according to Harvard University. Just keep it general. Recent research has shown, a growing body of evidence suggests that. These are good examples to introduce your examples. And no, they won't Google. The examiners are not going to check whether your examples are true or not, okay? Exactly. So as long as it's plausible, as long as it sounds like it could be true, then that is all you need to do. Okay.
Jamie, I'm really sorry. My internet
Guys,
just,
I've come back here because I can't see the chat if I'm trying to share there. So let's see, I think Mary has just rejoined us. Hi, Mary.
I'm so sorry. My whole internet just went off and I don't know what happened.
That's okay. It's okay.
I'm really sorry.
It's fine from my side. Sinsu is relieved. Said, "Oh my God, thank you so much. Welcome." Good. And Neo says, "No problem, no problem."
Yeah,
Awesome.
should be
Yeah,
better system in London, I think, but I don't know what's going on.
yeah.
Um,
That's fine. I've just been fielding some questions from students here on
okay.
examples and things. So we've, if your screen is all set up, then I think we can
Yeah,
just
sure. Do you want me
start
to
off.
continue from where I was before?
I think yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm so sorry, everybody. Anyway,
Go,
let's get going.
go.
So I've just
Okay,
got a few more slides to look at.
awesome.
Um, so I think when I was cut off, I was asking you which word would make sense here. So this helps to something the country's economy. Yeah, boost. That's right. Good. And then a reason. So because as young people get older, they something essential consumer items. So a verb. Buy. So another word similar to buy, a little bit more academic. Purchase. Yeah, purchase. Okay, and then an example. So a nice linking phrase, such as houses, furniture, and electrical goods. That's right. Good. Okay, and then just looking at the linking expressions, as I said before, despite this is a nice concession phrase, which kind of links up with the previous paragraph. First of all, it's a sequencing expression. And then this helps too, because, as, and such as. Okay, and then useful vocabulary, some useful collocations, a number of significant benefits, a bigger market for goods and services, boost the country's economy, essential consumer items, and electric goods. So it's worth learning those words as part of phrases. Again, the verb form that's used is the present simple for factual situations. So we have creates, helps, and purchase. Okay, and then body paragraph C. So the same structure. Because you're adding another advantage, you can use an expression for adding a conjunction. So furthermore, can you think of any others? Instead of furthermore. Moreover, that's right. In addition, good. Yeah, additionally, yeah, all those make sense there. A large, youthful. Okay, so you need a noun here, youthful. Could be population, or the word demographic also works. A large youthful demographic also has social benefits. And then an explanation, as young people are able to provide care and support to their elderly parents. And yeah, Sinsu, yeah, that's right. Another advantage is that's fine. Relatives, good, Shruti. And an example, so in contrast, countries such as Japan. Okay, so a verb that collocates with challenges, that's face, good, most of you've got that. Face challenges in looking after their aged population, makes sense, or aging. Okay, as you probably noticed, we spell aging with an E here because it's British English, but if you're using American English, it would be without an E. Okay, and then the linking expressions, so furthermore, also, as, in contrast, such as. And the vocabulary, again, some useful collocations, a large youthful demographic, social benefits, face challenges, and aging population. Again, the verb form is present simple. So has, are able to provide, and face. Okay, and then, sorry, I'm rushing through this a little bit because of what happened before, but you will be able to watch this video later and go through it at your own pace. So the conclusion, in conclusion, although there are, okay, so again, this is acknowledging the other side. There are, yes, good. So drawbacks. So yeah, you need to give a sort of negative word there. So there are drawbacks to having a youthful population. It is clear that young people can make a significant, yes, Mohammed, good, a contribution to their country by developing the economy and providing support to older. Yeah, so it could be citizens, but we've used that already. So generations is good, or people. And then you're restating your opinion and using a nice linking phrase here. So on balance, I would argue that having a large number of young people is important, yeah, beneficial to any country. Okay, so that's it. As I said, sorry for rushing through, it's just because of what happened earlier. But as you can see, that 260 words, and if you wrote this essay, you would get to band 9, so it's obviously a good one to look at. A few things to remember: to analyze the question, decide on your overall response, choose the correct structure, make sure you include lots of linking expressions, and make sure you check your grammar and spelling and write at least 250 words. And that's it. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mary.
Sorry, I felt like I was rushing through that then, so I apologize.
No, not at all. Thanks for rejoining after leaving and soldiering on
I know, it's
despite
very
the
rude.
technical problems. Not at all. As great, excellent, guys, and thank you guys for joining us for the presentation, for bearing with us through the technical problems, and for suggesting a lot of really useful language. I hope you found it useful. So excellent. So guys, we will have some time now to discuss any questions you have, whether it's about advantage, disadvantage, or any general questions about IELTS. If you could add those questions to the Q&A, then we'll tackle them in a moment. Okay, I can see quite a lot of questions already in there. Feel free to add any other questions you have. We'll discuss them in a moment. For now, I would just like to do a bit of promotion for our speaking and writing evaluation service. So this is something that we offer via our website, IELTSonlinetests.com. We offer a writing evaluation service where you can submit a task 2 or a task 1 piece of writing. One of our qualified examiners will review it. They'll give you an estimated band score, as well as very detailed feedback on your performance. So you can see where your strengths and weaknesses are and what you need to do to improve your band score. We offer a similar service for speaking as well, where you can book a mock test on our website with one of our speaking examiners. We'll go through a full speaking test with you and give you feedback on how you can improve your score. So I've put the links to that in the chat. Please feel free to check it out. We also offer an IELTS Explained reading and listening course, which is a series of video lessons which will guide you through the different question types in the practice tests on our website. So if you're interested in improving your reading and listening, that is something that you can take a look at as well. Since the information about the speaking tests are in the speaking evaluation link. So if you follow that link, you'll get all the information there. Yeah, it's cam to cam, face to face with the examiner in our Zoom chat room. Okay, so excellent, guys. I've put some links to our YouTube channel, our upcoming webinars as well. You can check those out. So I think we can take a look at some of these questions. I will just pull up the Q&A box just now. First of all, there were some questions from Anonymous and also another student, sorry, I can't see your name, but they're asking about numbers. How are numbers counted in the writing? Is it counted as one word? Does it count? Is it multiple words? Do you have any insight into that, Mary? Or
I'm not really. I'm
yeah,
assuming. I'm
yeah,
assuming it's counted as
yeah,
words. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
one number I would imagine is counted as one word.
Yeah, that's
But
exactly right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's one word per number. So the number one is one word. The number two is one word. The number 10,000 is one word as well. So yeah, that's also any special characters you use, like dollar signs, percentage symbols. They also count towards your word count as well. Okay. Let's see. We have a question from Jan Nicholas. Do we get the slides of this presentation? Jan, we can't share the slides with you, but you can watch the recording on our YouTube channel. So that will be available from tomorrow, so you can review the lesson there, okay? I've got a question from Raza. Does writing matter?
Right, in general, do you mean in general, or
that was a question. Yeah, Raza, if you can be a bit more specific, then that will help us to answer your question. Yep, excellent. Let's see. A question here from Jacinta about the computer-based test. Jacinta's asking, for the computer-based test, will I be able to plan my answers on the computer? And we have just had a session with a student that just came out of the computer-based test. And so Mary, if it's okay, I can try and answer this one. We were told that you are given a couple of sheets of paper, which have your registration details in the computer-based test for logging into the computer. So you can use them as scrap paper to plan your answer. And if you want to plan your answer on the computer, you can just type your answer when your notes, and then when you want to, just do your final copy, you can delete your notes there. So yes, Jacinta, you can plan your answer on the computer there. Let's see. We've got a question from Raj Kiran. Raj Kiran's asking about the introduction. They're saying, can we use a general statement in the introduction as a kind of opening statement? Like, like for example, I've seen like a lot of students tend to begin their essays that, in the world today, an aging population is a point of debate or something like this, kind of very general statement. Hi there, Mary. Are you still with us? Oh, sorry, guys. I think we might have frozen again. So while Mary's coming back to us, I'll attempt to answer this question. Okay. So hopefully she'll come back before the end of the presentation. Okay, bye. See you, Ghazi. I hope you've enjoyed the session. For general statement, guys, many students, they like to begin their introduction with a very, very general, broad statement about the topic. To be honest, this doesn't usually add very much to the essay. It doesn't really add anything
sorry,
to the
I'm
essay.
back.
Welcome back.
I don't know what's going on this afternoon, honestly. I apologize.
Sure. No worries. This is quite unusual for us, guys. If it's your first one, yeah, don't worry. Yeah, but we'll hopefully get it resolved for next time. So yeah, so Mary, I was just answering a question that about the general statement and saying that you probably don't need to start with a very general statement at the beginning. It doesn't add very much to your essay. We usually just recommend paraphrasing the question, as that goes directly to the topic, and it helps you to start addressing the question rather than wasting words giving a sort of general overview. Yeah. Cool. Question here from Alyssa. In the writing task, are we allowed to use contractions?
You can use, well, I mean, contraction is a sign of informal English, so it's probably better not to. Because you need to be using more of an academic style. Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, better to stick with a more formal register. Yeah. Let's see, question here from Anonymous. Anonymous says, hello, how long should the conclusion be? Is just a few summarizing sentences okay? Yes, that's fine. So really probably 2 or 3 sentences is sufficient, as long as you're not introducing any new information. So you're just really paraphrasing the thesis statement. And so, yeah, you don't really need to say very much in the conclusion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And related to this, another question from Anonymous saying, should I write short sentences discussing my opinion in the conclusion? Anonymous, I would probably say it's better if you can stick with complex sentences. If you're able to write more complex sentences, 1 or 2 complex sentences in the conclusion should be enough there. Probably 2, just to make sure that you're writing a full paragraph and not just one sentence. So yeah, let's see. We've got a question from Alua Damilola, who is asking, can we use an expression like GDP without expressing it in full? It's a good question, actually.
I would say you probably can, if it's like a common acronym.
Yeah.
Because that's a recognized acronym, isn't it? So I think it's okay to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think as long as it's not too specialist, then you should be fine. I think for things that are maybe less common, for example, multinational company, you might, rather than writing multinational company again and again in your essay, you might want to abbreviate it to MNC. But the first time you write it full, you should write it out with each word. But then after that, and then in brackets, you can say MNC. And then the next time you can, show that, okay, I'm just writing MNC. But that's because it's a less common acronym that you're using for convenience. But if it's a very widely accepted one, like GDP, then yeah, I think that's fine, as you say. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, Tracy's asking a similar question as well. We just said GDP and then said, can we use abbreviations? So yes, as long as they're commonly understood. Let's see. We have a question here from there's a good question actually in the chat from Sinsu, who's saying, if I can't find a key word for paraphrasing, what should I do? If they're trying to find a way to paraphrase a keyword, but they're not sure.
So not being able to find a synonym for that, word, in other words. I probably wouldn't spend too long worrying about that. I would just use the same word, because I doubt that's going to happen. I mean, if that's happening for every keyword, then there's a problem. But I would just probably use the same word.
Yeah.
If you really can't think of another one.
Yeah. And yeah, I would absolutely agree. And I'd say that, if you can't think of another one easily, just use the same word as the question. There are some words that are very difficult to paraphrase, and sometimes students kind of tie themselves in knots trying to find other ways of saying very common words which don't have a clear paraphrase. So,
Mhm.
rather than getting more and more kind of ornate and unusual language, it's fine to repeat the words. You don't have to paraphrase every word. You just have to show that you're able to paraphrase sometimes,
Mhm.
but not
Mhm.
not every single word. So
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say there might be a phrase like global warming, and there isn't really an equivalent to that. So you
yeah,
would just use that expression. It would
yeah,
be it'd be a bit weird if you tried to paraphrase something like that.
yeah, yeah. And for example, in this essay, we've got young people, youth, um, maybe adolescent people, but then you're starting, if you look in a thesaurus, you'll find things like juvenile. So,
Mm.
students might write juveniles, but then the connotation there and the meaning is slightly different. And
Yeah.
that will actually affect your score because you're not using the language appropriately. So just repeat young people, the youth, young people, young adults. Absolutely. Those three, you've already shown that you can paraphrase. You don't need to change it every time. Okay. Uh, let's see. We have a couple of questions, like why did we start off with the disadvantage and not the advantage? I think this is a good question, actually.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, so you need to start off with, so if you've got two disadvantages, one advantage, you would start with the advantage. You would start with the fewer, the one where there are less.
Mm,
And that's just normally the way it's done in academic writing. So you would start off with one thing and then you'd kind of counter it.
mm.
And then it just makes your argument a bit stronger.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I like to think that the rule is something like we usually end with the opinion that we share. So you'll end with the point that you agree with, and you begin with the point that you disagree with. So if you think that there's more advantages, start with the disadvantage. And if you think that there's more disadvantages, start with the advantage. So you
Mm-hmm.
start with the opposite one from how you're going to conclude. There are reasons for this, but maybe we can get into Socratic sort of arguments a bit later. So
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
was just going to say, if you just think about acknowledging the other side and then giving your opinion, think of it like that, saying thank you for this, but this is what I think.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, excellent. Okay, guys, we've got a couple more minutes left, so I think we can tackle one or two more of your questions. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. A couple of questions here about the difference between American English and British English. So, can we switch between them? So can you use sort of some British English and some American English, or would you be penalized for that?
well, I think you need to be consistent. So if you're going to be writing in American English, you need to stick to that, and
Mm,
vice versa with British.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
as often as you can, particularly with, I would say, with the spelling.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, the chances of for now, nowadays, a lot of words are sort of in use in both. The spelling might be different, but the actual register. So an example here, like Claire has said, if I wanted to use an American term like trendy in the UK, it would be fashionable. I think, to be honest, both of those would be appropriate in either
Yeah,
kind of, yeah. So, yeah, you don't. don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, I think it's more words like, for example, we would say holiday, whereas Americans would say vacation. So there are words that we wouldn't use in our language, but we tend to use more American words than they would use British, I would say.
Yeah. It might be hard for the examiner to really pick up on which one you're using. So if you focus on the spelling consistency, because that will be more obvious, I would say. Excellent, guys. I'm afraid that we have come up to the end of the session today. So I would just like to say a very big thank you to Mary for joining us and for presenting.
Thank you, Jamie, and apologies again for the problems with the internet. I honestly don't know what happened there.
No worries. So thank you for soldiering on. And yeah, I think you're back now, so we're all good. And yeah, big thank you guys for joining us, for taking part in the session today. It's great to have you involved. If you do have any questions that we haven't gotten around to asking today, you can add them as comments on our YouTube videos. You can send them in via our Facebook page as well. I've also put the link to our upcoming lessons in the chat, so you can find them on our website, IELTSonlinetest.com. So if you could check out our YouTube channel, give us a like, a share, or subscribe, that would be excellent. It helps us to keep offering these webinars for free, so we really appreciate that. So yeah, I think that will do us for today. So a very big thank you to Mary.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll hopefully see you guys soon in another session.
See you, everybody, and good luck if you're doing IELTS soon.
Yeah. Best of luck if you've got your test.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.